Hey y'all, it's Brittany and welcome back. Come on in. I know it's been a while. Don't kill me. But I'm here. I'm back. And I am happy to be back, and I have a great case for you guys to talk about this week. We will be talking this week all about Miss Letecia Stauch. If you have not been following this case, you have probably been living your life under a rock. But quickly, before we get into the details, as always, I do want to welcome you and thank you. So for all of you who have stuck around during this hiatus of mine, I greatly appreciate it. I have seen the comments. I have seen your notes. I appreciate them. I love you guys. I appreciate the support. And thank you for sticking around. For those of you who are just finding my channel, hey sis, hey sir, come on in, take a seat, stay a while, grab your favorite beverage, your favorite thing that you like to do. If you want to treat this as a podcast, as some people do, instead of a visual, totally fine. But we are here to chat all about Miss Letecia Stauch. So let's get into the details of the case. Alright y'all, so before I hop into the nitty-gritty of the case, I wanted to give a little bit of background on the key players in this specific case. So Al Stauch married Letecia Stauch. Letecia Stauch was a single mother of one daughter who was either in her late teens or an early adult by the time all of this happened. I believe she was about 17 or 18 at the time that it took place, but her daughter's name was Harley. And Letecia was a single mom at the time because Harley's father, who Harley was told was killed in a robbery that had basically gone wrong, he had actually died from a drug overdose. Now, Al had already also had two children. He had Gannon, who was 11 at the time, and then he also had Lina, who was about 8 years old at the time. Now, Al had full custody of both of his children in 2020, and he was also a member of the National Guard, so he would be deployed quite often or have to go to training, and most times the children would be left with Letecia. Now, Letecia didn't take too fond to this idea. She didn't like the idea of her being the main person caring for his children when they weren't hers. Basically, it was said that she felt that she was being used as a babysitter. Now, Al had recently gotten deployed on January 25th of 2020. Now, the next day, on the 26th, Al got a call from Letecia saying that Gannon had accidentally knocked over a candle in the house and caused a fire. She said that she jumped on Gannon to put out the fire, but the result of the fire that he started resulted in burns on his arms. The very next day, she told Al that Gannon was then up all night with a stomach ache and she was going to keep him home from school, and then she was going to call off work to stay with him. But the way that she called off work, just off top, makes me feel like something is off with this woman. She told her job that her stepfather had been hit by a car and killed, so she couldn't come into the office that day. Calling in sick with a fever would have been just fine, or just telling the truth and saying that my son is homesick also would have been fine as an excuse to call off work, but this was extreme, at least in my opinion. Now, there is video surveillance from later that day, around 10:15 in the morning, of Letecia and a small boy, which we assume to be Gannon, getting into the car and leaving the Stauch home. Now, around 2:19 that afternoon, that same surveillance from the neighbor captures Letecia coming home in Al's car, which she drove that morning. And she gets out of the car after backing it in to their driveway, which was also something that she typically didn't do, which was also shown by video surveillance of their usual habits. But she backed the car in, she got out of the car, but Gannon was not with her. There was no small child that got out of the car with her. Now, later that day, when Gannon's younger sister, Lina, got home, she asked where her brother was, and Letecia told her that he was in his room and he's not to be bothered, and that she needed to go outside and play until her older sister, being Harley, Letecia's daughter, came to pick her up. Now, Harley also told police that her mom called her while she was at work and basically told her on her way home to pick up some carpet cleaner, some trash bags, and some baking soda before she came home to get Lina. At this point, something's up. This is a very unusual request, random request. Of course, to a teenager, they don't care. It's just their mom asked them to do yet another thing. So it didn't register as being concerning to Harley, but to the normal true crimer, something sounds wrong. Now, later on that evening at around 7 p.m., 911 dispatchers get a phone call, and it's Letecia Stauch. She says that Gannon has been missing since earlier in the afternoon, and she calls the emergency line, and they give her the number to the non-emergency line to call and report Gannon missing. She said that he had gone out to play that afternoon with friends or at a friend's house, and he hadn't returned since then. Now, when she was asked any information about the friend that he was going to play with, the parents, where they lived, any information at all, a name, she could not provide any information. So around 10 p.m., police arrive at the Stauch home to do a search, or to begin a search for Gannon. Now, this is also around the time where there is a phone call that has been placed from Gannon's cell phone to his mom. Now, Gannon has been missing and is missing at this point. We will later find out that he, unfortunately, was also deceased at this point, but it's not Gannon making the call. Now, the next day, we see that Letecia goes to a self-parking airport garage. She parks her car. She then proceeds to rent a car and goes to pick up Gannon's father, Al, because he had just returned from deployment, finding out that his child is missing. Obviously, as a parent, you want to be here, you want to help search, you want to be as helpful as possible to find your child, which is exactly what he did. Now, when Al asked why she rented a car to pick him up, her response was she didn't want to put too many miles on her car, which again made absolutely no sense. Now, later on in the evening, after she's dropped Al off, she goes back to that parking lot at the airport, and we'll find out that this is where police believe that she starts to move the body of poor Gannon. But she goes to this airport. Her daughter Harley comes to pick her up from that airport parking lot and takes her home. Now, I do want to be very clear. Harley has no part in this, at least as far as what we know. She was not a player in anything that took place. She wasn't aware of her mother's actions in any way. She was just a kid doing what she was asked to by her mom. Now, the following day, on January 29th, 2020, she went and returned the car that she had rented, the Kia that she had rented from the airport. After she returns the car, she goes to meet with investigators and to be interviewed by investigators on the whereabouts of Gannon. Now, what she tells police is that she and Gannon were held at gunpoint by a man named Eduardo. Now, she said that Eduardo raped her and then took Gannon, and she said that she cleaned up all of the evidence of being raped or being attacked or being held at gunpoint. She cleaned up the place, and then she called police and reported Gannon missing. Now, when police hear this, just as you would expect any police officer to do, they immediately want to gain access to any electronic records, phone records, and they also want to do a rape kit and a DNA sample. Now, as soon as they tell her this, they exit the room and they're trying to get the warrant for her phone. And they're trying to get approval to get, obviously, the rape kit DNA sample. And they can see her still in the interrogation room, and they see her stuffing tissue down her pants, and then she starts to say she can't breathe and she's having heart issues. So police can't question something like that, even though they've seen her do some strange things on the other side of the mirror. They rush her to the emergency room at a hospital. Now, she's checked by doctors. They say that there is nothing wrong with her. She's perfectly fine, and she is discharged. And she leaves on her own. She doesn't tell police or investigators that she's leaving the hospital. She just leaves and goes home. Now, immediately on the following day, Gannon is classified as a missing and endangered child. Now, this new classification immediately allows for the FBI, along with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, to join in the investigation and search for Gannon. And this now sets off a massive search across El Paso County for this 11-year-old child. Now, on the very next day, Letecia decides that she's going to rent a van and she's going to pack up her stuff and move. Her brother, Dakota, later testifies in the trial, but he says that he helped her to pack and therefore also helped her to move a bit later as well. Now, he said that he noticed that there was one very specific suitcase, a large suitcase that his sister was struggling with to get into the van as they were trying to move her things out of the house. So he, being a brother, offered to help Letecia with the suitcase because it looks so heavy. And she said no, she declined his help. She said, oh, it's just a bunch of softball stuff. That's why it's so heavy. Now, that doesn't answer why she would not allow him to help her if she was struggling with it, but that was her response. He also testified that after they had packed everything and they were then moving the things out of the van, she did not have that same suitcase. It was gone. So it led him to believe that Gannon, which we would later find out was deceased, was in the suitcase that she was struggling with but did not want anyone else to touch. But the next day after they move everything, Letecia checks herself into a hotel in Florida. Now, please keep that in mind. Very important. But while all of this is happening, the search is still continuing. She's not helping with the search, but the search is still continuing for Gannon. Now, during this time, also, Al is questioning Miss Letecia. Now, he really wants to know what she knows, as any parent would. You were the last person with my child, so you better tell me something, is the energy that he was giving. So he said that he had asked her on a number of occasions, what happened? Where is he? Did you have anything to do with it? He says that she gave him at least 5 different stories on different occasions. One being the story that she told police. But she also added that she knew what his name was because she saw his ID and some paperwork that he had. She had also tried to explain away the blood that was in Gannon's room and said that it wasn't just her that was sexually assaulted. Both she and Gannon were sexually assaulted and it caused them both to bleed, which is why you'll find his blood but also her blood in his room. She also told him that the attacker was still in the house when police arrived at 10 o'clock that night. She said she tried to signal to police that he was there, but nobody got it. Now, she also told him another story that a man named Quincy Brown had followed her from Petco and later laid in the middle of the road to get her to stop, to help him. And when she did that, he got into their car and forced her to drive to their home. And once there, he sexually assaulted her and then took Gannon. The last story that she told Al was that Gannon was out riding his bike. He fell and hit his head. When he hit his head, this Quincy Brown guy abducted him. Now, of course, none of these stories made sense to Al. So he just flat out asked her one good time, did you kill my son? And her response was that she was appalled by the notion and she couldn't believe that he would even fix his mouth to ask this question. But when you're given so many nonsensical stories to a man who's looking for their missing child, what else do you expect? Now, according to police records, she also tried to take a fake polygraph and get results from a website. They basically told her, no, we are not sending you the results. They felt that something criminal was going on and they reserved the right to deny sending results to any person through their website. And they did. They acted upon that and decided, we're not sending you this. Now, on February 21st of 2020, the search for Gannon was suspended, but it was suspended for a specific reason. Searchers found a piece of particle board that had blood on it, and this blood was determined to be Gannon's. It also would later be confirmed to match a piece of board that was found in the Stauch family garage as well. Immediately upon finding this piece of evidence, a judge issued a warrant out for Letecia Stauch's arrest. Now, they found her in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and she was arrested on March 2nd of 2020 for the murder of her stepson, Gannon Stauch. So immediately after that, Al Stauch wants a divorce. He files for divorce, and rightfully so. The divorce was finalized on April 30th of 2021. But meanwhile, on March 11th of 2020, her charges at that time were first-degree murder, tampering with a deceased human body, and also tampering with evidence. Now, about a week later, on March 17th, Gannon Stauch's body was found in Florida. And when I say in Florida, I mean just a few miles away from the hotel that Letecia had checked into just weeks earlier. He was discovered by bridge inspectors in Pace, Florida, and this is over 1,500 miles away from his home. Bridge inspectors found him in a suitcase under the bridge of the Escambia River. And when they opened it, they found a little boy's body wrapped in a blanket, thus ending the official 6 weeks of searching for Gannon. Now, when the medical examiner took a look at Gannon, it was found that Gannon was shot in the jaw, he was stabbed in the chest and back 18 times, and had at least 4 blunt force injuries. They also found a number of defensive wounds everywhere. He fought. They also found that he had hydrocodone in his system. Now, his father had a prescription for hydrocodone, but the kids never knew where they kept their medicine. It was always kept locked away in a safe place away from children's access. The only person that had access or knew where this medication was, other than Al, who was deployed at the time, was Letecia. Now, as police continued to search the home, they also found Gannon's blood on Letecia's shoe. They also found her DNA on a gun that they found that appeared to be the same gun that was fired and shot Gannon in the jaw. There was also blood splatter in Gannon's room, in his bed, and blood, so much blood that had soaked into the carpet and into the mat underneath the carpet and into the concrete underneath all of that. So there was significant blood loss in Gannon's room. They also found his pillow with a bullet hole in it as well. They also found blood that led to the garage and through the garage, which caused police to assume that the body had been transported through the home and into the garage. Now, also in searching through Letecia's devices, they looked on her phone, and if you have an iPhone, then you're familiar with this, but she had a note in her phone, and it was titled, "In the Case of a Missing Child, Gannon Stauch." And what it had on it was a number of different questions that you would expect to be asked as a person of interest or a witness or a suspect by police. So it was questions like, do you know what happened to Gannon? Do you have any information about the disappearance of Gannon? So police really felt like she was making a list of questions that she would expect to be asked and kind of preparing herself on how to answer those questions, which is very strange and unusual. And the title of the note itself was just strange. Why would you even write a note like that in your phone? What would be the point? Police also examined the Kia that she had rented, and lo and behold, they found blood in the Kia as well, and that blood would later match Gannon's blood. Finally, police take a look at the alarm system, which records everything, but they look at the alarm system at the Stauch home during the time that Letecia claimed that 1 or 2 men had forced their way into the home and she couldn't leave the home. She was held at gunpoint and then she was sexually assaulted, or both she and Gannon were both sexually assaulted. Either way, they look at those records and they see that somebody at that very time was going in and out the back door without a problem. In and out at least 10 times. So if you were being held at gunpoint and all of this was happening in the home at this time, who was going in and out the door? Now, on January 19th of 2021, a competency hearing was held and she was evaluated to confirm whether or not she would be competent to stand trial. And it was determined that she was competent to stand trial. She had also filed to be able to represent herself after she had gotten rid of her legal representation, and the judge granted her request to represent herself. That did not last long. She was appointed a public defender a few months later. Now, a year later, on February 11th of 2022, Letecia and her legal team enter a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. Now, what they say is that as a child, Letecia was physically, mentally, and emotionally abused by not only her mother, but the many men that were in her mother's life at the time. It was said that she was taken advantage of at a very young age. And because of this, she was diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder, which is previously known as multiple personality disorder. And what they say is oftentimes when young children go through abuse, they develop these alternative personalities, alternative identities to protect themselves, to check out, or all of the above. And this was the claim that her defense attorneys were making on her behalf as well. And that lends itself to her plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. They said that she had a psychotic break. They said that she was not fighting Gannon, but she was fighting the demons from her past, and that she was not even herself. She was not Letecia when these events took place. It was a different identity that she had that was the identity that committed the crime. Now, I am not one to say that I don't believe in mental disorders. I absolutely believe in mental disorders. I believe that this is a real disorder and there are real people that are suffering from dissociative identity disorder. Now, whether or not she is really suffering from the disorder, I can't say. I can't say whether it is convenient for her to say that or if she is truly suffering from it. I am also not going to speak on whether or not she was abused as a child, but I will say that there are a lot of people who do go through difficult childhoods, including abuse. They're not killing people, they're not killing children, and they're not using it as an excuse to be horrible members of society. There are people who go through very difficult childhoods and past abuse in childhood and adulthood that go on to live very fulfilling lives. They go on to be amazing people, contributors to society, and not killers. I lean on science. I lean on those who specialize in determining whether or not what she claims is real to make that determining factor, but who knows. Now, fast forward to trial, which started actually April 3rd of 2023. So just a little over a month ago. Now, I will give you a full list of her most updated charges. She has a charge of murder in the first degree for a child under 12 in a position of trust. She also has a separate charge of first degree murder. She has a charge for tampering with a deceased human body, a charge for tampering with physical evidence, 8 counts of a crime of violence charge, and 1 charge of attempted escape because she did try to escape from jail while she was being held before trial and was caught. Now, as I mentioned, the trial has already begun, so I did layer in a lot of the key evidence that came out during trial in a chronological order as best as I could. But basically, their key witness for the defense was an expert witness. It was Dr. Dorothy Lewis. Now, Dr. Dorothy Lewis is an expert in serial killers, but she is also an expert in dissociative identity disorder. She was an expert witness in the trial of serial killer Joel Rifkin, so she really does know her stuff. Now, she interviewed Letecia and evaluated her, and she said that she really does believe that Letecia suffers from dissociative identity disorder. She said that on occasion, as she was interviewing her, she spoke to different identities, one being Taylor, another being Maria. Now, Dr. Lewis says that she believes that Letecia wasn't actually present when the crime took place. She said that Maria said that she was the one who shot Gannon and that she thought that Gannon was an intruder and she didn't mean for it to be him and he wasn't supposed to die. That's all fine and good, but Gannon was not just shot. Gannon was shot. Gannon was beat. Gannon was stabbed 18 times. So if you were only trying to stop an intruder, why was the overkill necessary? Maria, whoever Dr. Lewis was talking to, why was that overkill so necessary? Now, again, Dr. Lewis, she is a specialist in this area. I see both sides to that as well. It's always very difficult when you have a key witness that is an expert, because you have to balance the thought of they know their stuff, this is what they live and breathe, but also they want to be right, and they want what they believe in for everybody else to also believe in. So it always comes to question, is she speaking from facts, or is she just speaking because she wants another case to prove that dissociative identity disorder is out there and real, and here's a big case where I can use that as a platform. Now, the trial lasted 20 days and it actually just wrapped up, and closing arguments were already delivered. What the prosecutor basically said in closing was that this was a premeditated crime, a premeditated murder, and Letecia was completely sane when she committed this crime. To prosecutors, it's evident by her actions after the crime was committed in an effort to cover up all of the evidence and what she had done in hiding Gannon's body across country. Now, the defense closing arguments, on the other hand, were saying basically that Letecia was not sane at the time of the crime. She had a psychotic break and she should not be held responsible for the crime that she committed. They said that she was abused, and because she was abused, she had dissociative identity disorder. And again, no motive, no reason for her to kill Gannon, nothing for her to benefit from. So find her not guilty. Now, as of today, the jury has reached a verdict in this case. The jury found Letecia Stauch guilty of the murder of Gannon Stauch, an 11-year-old boy that was in her care as her son. Now, this has been a whirlwind of a case. It's taken a couple years, and quite honestly, this is faster than a lot of cases that I have seen move through the justice system, the judicial system, but this has been filled with a lot of emotions following this case. As a mom, I could never see, no matter how difficult things get with kids, because it gets difficult, it gets real, but I could never see doing something like that because I didn't want to caretake for anyone anymore or anything of that nature. There's nothing that could push me to that point of taking the life of a child, an innocent child. I also think that it put me in a place to question a lot of my thoughts and beliefs on the mental health space and what's real and what's not, and what you should be held liable for and what you shouldn't be. So this case really caused me to think and reflect a lot about everything, a lot of different things in life. But I want to hear from you guys, so comment down below your thoughts on this case. Were you following this case from beginning to end? What did you think of the defense and the reasoning behind their plea? Do you think that she should be held liable? Do you think that the verdict was just? I just want to hear your thoughts, guys. This case has been really big in the news, and I did want to cover it because I felt like it covered a lot of different spaces that we all talk about, we all think about, we all live and breathe. So I thought this would be a great case to come back to. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed this case coverage as much as I did. I can't wait to cover more things. I'll try to keep a good mix of fresh cases along with cases that really matter to the community and communities like mine and yours. The things that we all know and love, I want to continue to cover, but I hope to be back in a much more frequent cadence for you guys as well. I also will be doing a lot more fragrance videos. I am obsessed. I have been obsessed for a number of years with fragrances, and I've done a few videos, but I do want to make those on a more regular cadence for you guys as well. I really hope that you guys will come along for that ride as well. I know a lot of you have commented and mentioned that you love the fragrance videos as well. So I hope that you guys continue to support as I grow both avenues on this channel. But look out for more stuff from me soon. I really appreciate the love and support and all of you guys sticking around. And if you have not already, please make sure you subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Please make sure you also like this video if you really enjoyed it and you'd like to see more coming. You guys really help to push the videos and the support through the algorithm. I really do appreciate you guys. So until next time, y'all, it's been fun. It's been real. Bye, guys.